Hello everybody. Today in this short video I want to discuss the plausibility of Dyophysite Doctrine in light of modern neurobiology. For example, the standard Christian belief is that Jesus as God is omniscient, he's all-knowing. But, the New Testament depicts him as, growing in knowledge, not knowing certain things like the last hour. So how do you reconcile that, huh? One popular answer is to say that it pertains to the fact that he had two natures, one human and one divine, and the limitations were on specifically his human nature. But a lot of people find that hard to believe. They say, what are you saying? He was all-knowing and he wasn't all-knowing at the same time? He knew it and he didn't know it? What is this, huh? What? Come on. Well, in an attempt to make sense of all this, I'd like to recommend a few different works. First is the book The Logic of God Incarnate by Thomas Morris. Another is Thomas Nagel's 1971 article, Brain Bisection and the Unity of Consciousness, which was in the journal Synthese. In the book by Thomas Morris, he proposed that Christ had two minds, one for each nature. He had a human mind and a divine mind. However, he was careful to note that when he says mind, he's referring to something that a person has, not something that a person is. So in other words, he's saying that Christ had multiple ranges of consciousness, multiple places where, mentation and cognition took place. And he proposed that one of these minds would, be omniscient and the other one would be limited in knowledge. And so when the New Testament depicts Christ as limited in knowledge, it's from the perspective of his limited human mind. But, many would say we still have the same problem. You're saying two minds, so he knows it or he doesn't know it. He's omniscient and he's not at the same time. What is this? The people would say. But this is where it's interesting. Morris makes a passing reference to commissurotomy patients, also known as split brain patients. A commissurotomy patient, or also known as split brain patient, is someone who's had their corpus callosum severed, separating the two hemispheres. To learn more about this subject, you go to the article by Thomas Nagel that I mentioned, or you can go to the writings of Michael S. Gazzaniga. Long story short, there's certain people who have had their corpus callosum severed, so their two hemispheres can no longer communicate with each other, the two hemispheres of their brain. And then come along these neurobiologists, and they study these people. They do all kinds of experiments and tests on them. And what they were able to do in their studies is feed information to one hemisphere or the other, so that one hemisphere would have information that the other didn't. Now, it turns out that one hemisphere would control their verbal activities, their ability to talk, their speech patterns, and the other would control the motor functions in a specific hand. So in these experiments, the neurobiologists would feed information to just one hemisphere and then ask the person a question based on that information. For example, in one experiment, they put a bunch of objects in front of the person, like a clove of garlic, a rubber chicken, a hammer. Then they would send the word garlic to one eye, the eye that would send it to the specific hemisphere that controlled the hand. So, as a result, only one hemisphere would have the information about the word garlic, and the other didn't. And this is where it gets interesting. They would then say to the person, reach out and grab the object that you just were shown. And the person would reach out and grab the garlic. However, while their arm was reaching out to grab the garlic, at the same time they would say with their mouth, I didn't see anything. How can I grab anything? The implications here are very important to the theory of Thomas Morris, which we covered earlier in the video. We have a single person who has information in one range of consciousness, and yet he lacks information in another. And that person sincerely says that he doesn't know about the subject because he's speaking from the range of information that lacks it. In short, it's possible for a person to have multiple ranges of consciousness and to sincerely express ignorance on a subject when speaking from a range which lacks that information, while simultaneously having that information in another such range of knowledge. That's the important part here. The sincere expression of ignorance on a subject does not preclude the possibility of him having that information in another range. And thus, we see the plausibility of Thomas Morris's two minds model. Aha!